Hi, I'm Leanne Ely. I'm a nutritionist, a New York Times best-selling author, and some people even say I'm a life coach. I started the Daily Dish Show to share my story, my truth, and my journey to vibrancy, and to inspire others to do the same. Because it's all about grit, perseverance, and finding a way despite the odds. It's about embracing the whole woman, not just the parts that are easy to love, and feeding her heart, mind, body, and soul. But I found that this isn't just my story, it's your story too. It's go time. This is the Daily Dish. Did you hang out with us yesterday? Anybody here yesterday and heard yesterday's show? We talked about procrastination. Actually, what we've been talking about all week is putting a dent in the universe. In other words, discovering what our purpose is here on this earth, and then going through and following through with all of that and making our dent in the universe. You know, that's what Steve Jobs says, that we're here to make a dent in the universe. And boy, did he, didn't he? Changed the world. I mean, I use all of his products. The great, I'll tell you my Apple story, great Apple story. I switched over to Apple way back when, way back in the early 2000s. And I remember I felt like I was starting to get, having to buy a new laptop every year, and at that time I was using a desktop. I was just getting sick of it. And I kept having friends say, try this, try the MacBook, try this, try that. And I kept saying to myself, I don't want to learn some new technologies. I'm used to this, blah, blah, blah. And then finally, after my, whatever it was that I had, I don't even remember what brand it was, pooped out again. I said, that's it. I went down to the Apple store and I bought this Mac. It was the desktop. Taught myself how to use it as much as I could, did a few, classes or whatever. And it was easy. And that thing lasted forever and ever. And then, I think I updated again, bought something else, and finally started going to laptops. And then my drive crashed, and I got the dreaded blue screen or whatever screen you get. And I took it in to the Apple store, and they said, well, it's going to take about 6 to 8 days to get this fixed. And it's probably going to cost about $300 to $400. I was like, well, you know what? This is how I make my living. I don't have a choice. So do it. 2 days later, I get a phone call and they said, you know what? We fixed it. We were able to save all of your information, and it's our fault. It was a faulty drive, not yours. And come on down and you can pick it up. Well, at that point, not only did they have it done in time, not only did they save everything on there, not only did they not charge me, they made a customer for life. And here I am telling you this story. And that is everything. That is everything. So when we have those kind of moments in life, we remember them. And this is the result of Steve Jobs, right? He was a smart guy. He put that together. He had a vision of doing things differently. And what about you? Do you have a vision of doing things differently and you're just maybe afraid of it? Maybe afraid that this is something that you can't do? Or have you found yourself in a place of perpetual procrastination? We talked about that yesterday, and boy, oh boy, boy, that was a different thing, wasn't it? Hey, Lynn, I'm glad you're here. And there's our girl, Diane. And yeah, I mean, it's just kind of a thing, isn't it? It's just one of those deals where you're trying to figure everything out. Procrastination holds you back. Procrastination is the big absolute blocker of all things vibrant. Have you figured that one out yet? I certainly have. I have figured it out. And yet still, there are times where I really struggle with it, because that's what humans do. They find themselves in that place. And there's a spot where you kind of subsist, of should I or shouldn't I? Am I going to put this off or am I not? But when we understand that it is a coping mechanism and it's not laziness, that's a game changer right there. And then we have to ask ourselves and go deep into that next question. What am I coping from? And as you talked about yesterday, go watch yesterday's show if you need to. there's a whole bunch of stuff that it could be attached to. And I think it's well worth you taking a peek see at that, because who knows what it is. We all have our different things. But I bring this up for two reasons. Because one, I want you to watch the show, because that's the mind blowing will ensue. We had a lot of people with bursting, brain emojis on there, and just like, wow, I didn't know that. How long have you been beating yourself up over this whole thing of thinking, oh, I'm just lazy? No, you're not. You're trying to cope. You're trying to cope with whatever. That's up to you to put that together. And I also want to remind you that everything that I presented yesterday was based on studies done by actual licensed psychologists. So this isn't just somebody's pulling this out of their bottom, like, hey, this sounds like a good idea. Let's make people feel better. It's actual science with actual research studies. So that's number one. And number two, I want you to know that, procrastination will always keep us from making our collective dents in this universe. Always. And it's not, it's not fair to you if you don't understand this. And that's why I'm bringing this up. I want you to understand this. Yes, you can make your dent in the universe. And yes, you can cope and beat down procrastination. Absolutely perfectly and 100%? Probably not. But what if you could 80%? Would that change everything? That's the way I'm starting to think. Instead of all or nothing mentality, I'm starting to think this little bit, boy, is that going to make a big difference? And it'll make a big difference to you too. So today we're going to focus on the constraints that we all have in our lives, because sometimes we use them as our excuses for procrastination. And sometimes we use them as just a plain old, we say our constraints. Well, I can't because, we have these things. So listen, this to me is my constraint confessional. That's what I'm using today, because I think this is an important thing to do. This is an important thing to recognize where we are in this continuum on achieving our goals, what it is that we want in our lives, and living our lives with purpose, on purpose, and doing it vibrantly. What stands in the way? That's what we've been looking at. And I've calculated that if you sleep 8 hours a day, you have exactly 5,840 hours of awake time each year. 5,840 hours of awake time each year. That's a boatload of hours, isn't it? And those awake hours, but think about how you spend them. Think about how you spend them. Not in necessarily what you do, but what you're thinking about. Think about that. Sometimes it's just full on psychological punishment. Beating yourself up. Oh, I could have done better with that. Oh, why is it? Here I am on this thing, and now I've got all this stuff going on. Why is this happening? But that's us sitting on our fear fences, in my opinion. We sit there on our fear fences, punishing ourselves, and a lot of times, yes, it's rooted that we're sitting on it, right? It's rooted in a lot of this fear. But I believe every thought we think, and I believe every feeling that we feel is just what it is. It is what it is. We feel things and we think things. It doesn't necessarily mean it's true. We think things and then we come to conclusions, not necessarily the right ones, but we do. And this is what we're doing. We're rationalizing what we can do, and we're rationalizing what we can't do. A lot of times based on fear, and a lot of times based on the narrow vision of what we see for our lives. We see not ourselves in seasons of life, but we see ourselves in just, whoa, I can't do anything. It's too overwhelming. It's too this, it's too that. And we inflict our own pain or own blame onto someone else, and maybe find ourselves in this whole blame shifting. Well, if it wasn't for fill in the blank, I could fill in the blank. That's convenient, isn't it? Well, I'd be a supermodel in supermodel shape if it wasn't for my dog and having to walk him and take care of him, or my parent, or my children, or my job, or my, you see where I'm going with all of this? We do that. And then what do? We turn around and we feel ineffective, we feel small, and we feel like we just don't matter. We're just here to do tasks. We're here to carpool and schlep and to do things for other people, pick up prescriptions and grocery shop, cook, chop, eat, clean up. Oh, exhausted. I'm exhausted from all that. But we can get caught in that loop. It's one we create in our minds. It's not the truth. It's one we create in our minds. Now, keep that in mind as we go forward with all of that. Because the thing is we all get frustrated. All of us, every single person on the planet gets frustrated at the lack of things not getting done, right? And the distance of our unmet goals. It seems so far away. It seems so untenable. And yet, every single day, shampoo, rinse, repeat. We go back to those same punishing mindsets, those same punishing thoughts each day as we go through each action. And it gets really hard. It gets burdensome, and it gets deeper and thicker and almost gets you to the place where you hardly can breathe. But Timothy Butler suggests, and this is a separate thing, and I read this about the workplace, which I thought was really interesting. And he suggests that in the workplace, we should all job sculpt, meaning finding ways to make the job fit better and to make it more enjoyable. Well, my suggestion is, why can't we do that with everything, right? Why can't we? Why can't we take a look at what it is that we're doing and have a place, have a way to just change things a little bit, to change and shift that mindset just a little bit? Because it's a matter of reconnecting with our purpose and re-examining why we're here and re-examining too the fulfilling parts of what we're doing. Because I will tell you right now, as a mother who had 2 little children right in a row, it's not fulfilling wiping butts all day. It's not fulfilling doing all that laundry. It's not fulfilling with all of that. But the overarching thing of the fulfillment part isn't in the tasks, it's in the mothering. That's the fulfillment part. When you allow that in, when you allow those baby giggles to fill you up, when you allow your dad's one lucid moment to be enough for you that day, when you allow for and look for, by the way, this is the re-examination part, look for the joy in your life. I shared the story a long time ago that I used to, when I was doing the laundry, and I was just really overwrought with the condition of my life. Is this all there is? This is where I am? Everything was wrong. Everything. I had a really rotten marriage, just truth be told. I had 2 children that one I suspected had learning disorders, found out about that later. And another child who was practically, invisible because she did everything right. And she didn't demand a lot of my time. And I was thankful for that. And at the time, the whole world was centering around me and my grief over things that weren't right. Little did I suspect how what I was feeling was tumbling into everything else that I was doing. And, it's interesting. This brings us to the place of Robin Sharma's quote, right? Of energy flows where your attention goes. And at the time, I didn't know that. But I had a woman in my life. Believe me, she was a Titus woman and a half for me. And she said something to me that I will never forget, of blessing my children, blessing my home, being a blessing instead of cursing all the things in my life. And I'd started doing the laundry. And as I was putting stain remover, or whatever, shouting out those stains on the jeans, instead of cursing that, I started blessing my children as I put the laundry in. That thank God they've got this life, they've got this yard to play in, and that they're having a really wonderful childhood. And even my washing machine, thank God I don't have to go to a laundromat. And literally thanking God for these things and blessing my machine, blessing my children, blessing things as I went along. And what I remember is that, at that time, that shifting that focus changed everything, even up to toilet cleaning, for heaven's sakes. I was blessing the fact that I had a toilet bowl to clean, with children. And I had friends who, I had a girlfriend who never had children and was longing for them. And here I was upset that there was a little pee on the rim. Come on. It's really amazing how much we get upset at the smallest things and they add up. Instead of looking through all of that mess and looking for the diamonds and looking for the things that are here to light you up. We choose our lives, and sometimes life chooses us. We don't necessarily volunteer and say, yes, I'll take care of my my dying mother. We don't do that. But we do when the situation calls for it. So that was one thing that helped me to be so much happier in my life, even in the worst of times, even when things were really difficult and they weren't great. And a few things that I wrote down besides this one little nugget that I just shared with you about, just how difficult that one part, getting past that one part, but understanding that where my attention goes, that's where my energy is going to flow. So I can curse those clothes as I put them into the washing machine, or I can instead just bless them as I put them into the washing machine. It was a real workout. And as a matter of fact, I put a little sign, a little 3x5 card right above my washing machine that said blessing, just to remind me. Because then it took me through my little household chores every day, and it took me into a different perspective. It seriously changed everything. But, one of the things too that I learned, and this was again from an older woman, is that, you know what? You got to go with the flow. And I would say, if you're writing things down, I would write that down as number one. Go with the flow. Because you're going to have a baby. If you've got a baby, that baby's going to teeth. And I'm going to tell you what, babies don't do it gracefully. They cry. It hurts. And it's a pain when they're up at 2 o'clock in the morning and you're thinking, I just got to sleep. It's tough, but you got to go with it and just, well, there you are. There you are with this teething baby. There you are with this toddler melting down. And there you are with this mom who's decided, they're going to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and make themselves scrambled eggs, turning on the stove. So what do? We go with it and we love anyway, because when we love anyway, we discover the blessings. And when we love anyway, we discover a sense of humor that maybe has been packed down for a long, long time. And we also understand we don't control everything. We are not the centers of our own universes. As much as maybe we'd like to think so, we're just not. And number two is we pause and we pray. One thing that has been my constant reminder in my life, and I don't know about you, but sometimes if things come up over and over again, it's not to be a knee-jerk reaction. Don't answer that text with all caps. Don't necessarily respond to that email right away. Don't have a word to say immediately when somebody says something offensive to you. You have a moment to pause. And then, if you're smart, you have a moment to pray. And you bring it to your knees, and that's going to give you the pause that you need. And it's going to give you a clarity that you didn't have otherwise. So this is the one who made you, by the way, hasn't left you high and dry. He hasn't said, well, let's just create her, give her a whole bunch of problems, a whole bunch of stuff that she needs to deal with. See you later. Keep the lines of communication open. And remember, prayer is available to all. God help is enough sometimes. Number three, accept the bad days with the good. Why do we have this idea that it has to be perpetually sunshiny outside? Why do we have this idea? Yeah, I've shared with you before, bless my mother, she's a real hand wringer. And I would call her sometimes. I lived in North Carolina. She lived in California at the time. And say, how's it going, Mom? Oh my gosh, it's raining. You just wouldn't believe it. And it's cloudy, it's raining. I've had to have the heat on. And it just clouded up her day because her focus was on that. But I say to you, and this is the truth, without the rain, we don't appreciate the sunshine. We just don't. We need to have good days and bad days so that we can contrast them, so we can appreciate the goodness in those good days. Amen? That's just how it is. There's a contrast in everything that we do, right? Oh, Sarah, that's so good. Sarah says, I'm trying to let go of labeling bad days or good days. If I'm alive, it's a good day. I would just say there are days where we get challenged, don't we? We get really challenged. And all of these concepts really drill home. This pausing and praying thing, how many times are you on that knees that day? How many times? Joanne says the bad days make the good days all the better. It's true. We have rain and we have sunshine. Let's remember this. And number 4 is being frustrated isn't a mortal sin. You have the right to be frustrated. I remember my mother-in-law saying all the time, don't be frustrated. Don't do this. Don't do that. In other words, deny how you're feeling, right? But you know what? I'm going to just say this. When you give yourself grace and space to process, you're giving yourself a huge gift because we all need it. You have the right to say time out. Even if you can't leave the situation, time out. I'm going to deal with this. I'm going to deal with this thing I'm thinking and these tears that I want to cry and these feelings that I have and this wanting to scream. I am going to deal with this. But for right now, I just got to get to this next spot, especially if you got a kid, in a gas station where you're trying to change their diaper in a crappy, dirty bathroom, right? You know exactly what I'm talking about. When we do this, and we talked about this a little bit yesterday, this idea of self-compassion, or maybe it was the day before, I don't even remember, they're all rolling into each other. This idea of self-compassion is just such a gift. Yes, it was yesterday. Because when we give ourselves self-compassion, we're giving ourselves that space and that love that we need to be feeling at that time too. And yes, you can love yourself up. And yes, you can give yourself that gift. And yes, it does make a difference because it shows you're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. You're enough just as you are, frustrations and all. So don't beat yourself up if you're feeling frustrated. Don't let somebody shut you down. Feel it, explore it, whatever, appropriately, of course, and when you don't, this is what apologies are about. This is what seeking forgiveness is about. This is how we correct the knee jerk, and hopefully there's somebody, the recipient on the other end is gracious and will accept your apology and understand that, sometimes things go wrong. We all do not walk this earth perfectly. I know, mind-blowing, right? True. Number 5 is my favorite, though. This is one of the things that completely changed my life, and that's gratitude. When we start our day with gratitude, we're starting with our eyes focused on the prize already. Gratitude. You know what? I'm a mother. There's gratitude in that. You know what? My parent is still here. I have gratitude for that. You know what? This is a hard job, but I've got a roof over my head, and I'm able to feed the family. Gratitude and anger, by the way, cannot coexist together at the same time. And if you're filled with gratitude, you can't be angry because you might be frustrated. You might have a whole bunch of other things going on, but anger is not one of them. We don't operate well from anger. Has anybody ever noticed that? Pinkies up. I don't know about you, but I have not done well with that. I haven't expressed myself well. I haven't been kind enough, gentle enough, and loving enough when I've spoken out of anger. Never. Not once. Sometimes, though, when I've had a chance to process and I've had a chance to have a conversation, I can speak with clarity and use my words, as my mother used to say to me when I was 3 or 4, use my words so that I can solve this problem or at least connect to what it is and allow for the processing of it. I mean, that's well. We don't operate well in anger should go on the next quote deck. It's true. I don't know of a single solitary soul who does. We blow it. This is when we lose our collective minds and psh, it's not, it doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. This is why I believe the practice of gratitude is so crucial. Boy, you mix that up with a little meditation and journaling and using your goal planner. Hola, can I tell you? We get stuff done then. And the mindset shifts in a big way. Number 6, if you're really going through it, use the breath box breathing technique. That's breathe in for 4, hold it for 4, breathe out through your mouth, making that noise for 4. And do this maybe 10 times. Navy SEALs use this technique. It helps to calm them down. It also activates the vagus nerve through activating the parasympathetic nervous system, which helps to bring the whole situation down. It's not just, oh, I feel better. It's your whole entire nervous system, by the way. And it brings it all down. It takes care of the cortisol. It takes care of you. These are things that we can, our bodies are just, you are a container of chemicals, a huge container of chemicals. You're feeding the right ones or the wrong ones at all times. And when we understand how to work them and just understand, okay, I'm getting worked up. I need to bring it. I need to bring this all down. I'm going to start some breathing. Boom, there you are. Isn't that cool? I love stuff like that. We have off and on switches throughout our bodies. Jeanette says it takes me 10 times. Oh, well. You know what? Sometimes it takes me 3 times. Sometimes it takes me 10. Probably there are times it takes me 20. It depends on the situation. But again, we have the ability and we have processes, strategies, actual things that we can do that aren't going to cost you a dime to get you to the place of really understanding how your body operates and how to bring it back down into the place where you feel like you're in control again. And number 7 is, y'all, I want to pinkies up on this. When you need help, do you ask for it? Do you? Or do you ever say these words, I just don't know what to do? Anyone? Well, I'm going to tell you right there, those 2 things, saying I don't know what to do and I need help, you're signaling the universe. You are sending out flags, blinking lights. This is a lighthouse to God and his people. And the help will arrive. Help will arrive. Da, 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 da. Seriously. That's the cavalry, by the way. This is for sure. You are not on an island by yourself with no resources. You don't have to do this alone. There are people. There are processes, there are situations, there are places, there are angels here to help you with that one thing that you just can't get over, that you're confounded by. No one is left alone. And I always say here, in our little tiny, sweet community, no one goes unnoticed on my watch. No one goes away on my watch. We stay together. We're a community. We see each other and we have each other's backs. This is the way it needs to be. This is the way it needs to be. This is how we operate in our humanity, with great love, great compassion, and the way I believe that we were meant to be to each other and to ourselves. I say it's time for us to make a dent in this universe. What do you say? Nothing's going to hold you back from that. If you're determined that this is the call on your life to make that dent, if you're determined that this is how you want to show up in this life, then look at this, believing in yourself. Believe. When you believe in yourself, you're saying, I'm acknowledging that I have the resources, I have the capabilities, I have the people, I have the love, and gosh darn it, I was put here on purpose by God himself. How can you go wrong? It's not easy, but it's work. It's good work. It's the right kind of work. That's all I have for you today. And I hope you all have a beautiful, wonderful Thursday. Peace be with you. Bye-bye. Thank you for joining me today. You can find me on TikTok for daily tips to help support your most vibrant life. And remember, you are the author of your own story. Until next time.